A very good morning, one and all. We go for the blessings of Almighty before the beginning of any programs. All your hands together.
ईश्वरा जगदीश्वरा सर्वेश्वरा नमो नमो ईश्वरा जगदीश्वरा सर्वेश्वरा नमो नमो പൂവിലും തളിരിലും തുഷാരബിന്ദുവിലും പാരിലും വിണ്ണിലും വിളങ്ങും ഈശ്വരനേ ഞങ്ങളിൽ സ്നേഹമായി നന്മയായി കനിയണമേ ഞങ്ങളെന്നും നന്ദിയോടെ നമിച്ചിടുന്നു ഈശ്വരാ ജഗദീശ്വരാ സർവേശ്വരാ നമോ നമോ ഈശ്വരാ ജഗദീശ്വരാ സർവേശ്വരാ നമോ നമോ.
India is a unique nation. Fabric has been woven by diverse linguistic, cultural, and religious threads, held together into a composite national identity with a rich history of cultural evolution, coupled with a recent freedom struggle that was built on the tenets of non-violent justice. The idea of Ek Bharat Shrestha Bharat sustained and cultural contact between denizens of different religions was mooted by Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi during the Rashtriya Ekta Divas held on 31st October 2015, commemorate the birth anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. We are gathered here to take part in the presentation, which is going to be screened here by the cordial association of EBSB Club and History Department. The ultimate aim of conducting this event is to inculcate the history and culture of Himachal Pradesh. I would like to invite Jyoti Lakshmi from PC History for welcome speech.
Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, it's my pleasure to welcome the source of spirituality, the one who leads this institution into success, Reverend Dr. Sister Regina Ma Joseph, into this program. Next, I proudly call an active participant and leading spirit of this institution, Vice Principal, Reverend Dr. Shaji John, to this ceremony. Next, I welcome the most familiar face for students of respected Vice Principal, Dr. Sister Minimol Matthew, to this event. It is my privilege to invite this event the most friendly person, respected Bursar, Reverend Dr. Joseph. Next, I would like to welcome the one who continuously make efforts to facilitate all the events with regard to EBSB Club, our coordinator, Rekha Miss, to this event. Next, the backbone of History Department, a truly kind-hearted companion for us, Sunitha Miss, to this event. And here I welcome the one who's been standing there for us throughout in our journey, respected tutor, Mrs. Monisha George, to this amazing morning. The success of any event is lying in the hands of its spectators. So last but not the least, I wholeheartedly welcome all of you to this splendid ceremony. By pleading your valuable cooperation, I would like to conclude my words. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti. Here comes the moment that we all have been waiting for. I welcome Ms. Gauri Sushama Prasad for the presentation regarding the history and culture of Himachal Pradesh.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I am presenting the history and culture of Himachal Pradesh. I am Gauri Sushma Prasad of 30C History, Alphonsa College, Pala. In this session, we'll be dealing with some facts about Himachal Pradesh, its history and culture. In the history, we'll be dealing with the proto-history, prehistory, ancient history, medieval and modern history, the formation of Himachal Pradesh as a state, and we will be dealing with its culture. Now, let us start the presentation. Himachal Pradesh, the state with beauty and simplicity. Himachal Pradesh is a land of serene beauty in the foothills of Great Himalayas. The state has beautiful hill stations like Kulu, Manali, and Dalhousie, rivers like Bias, Ravi, Satluj, valleys with forest cars, and heartwarming people. Himachal Pradesh is the northernmost state of India, and it shares the borders with the union territories of Kashmir and Ladakh to the north. Here we can see a beautiful image of the Himachal Pradesh. It is also surrounded by the states of Punjab to the west, Haryana to the southwest, a very narrow border with Uttar Pradesh to the south, Uttarakhand in the southeast, and it shares an international border with China. It was Tibet past in the past, but now it is in the China in the eastern side. Himachal Pradesh is also known as Deva Bhumi, which means the land of gods, and also nicknamed as the Veer Bhumi, which means the land of the brave. The state has 12 districts covering an area of 55,673 kilometers square. And its summer capital is Shimla and its winter capital is Dharamshala. The state holds 21st position in terms of population with 68.6 lakh people as per the 2011 census. The 90% of its residents are in the rural areas and they mostly practice agriculture. The state animal is snow leopard. The state bird is the western tragopan. The state flower is bell rhododendron. The state fish is golden mushroom. The state fruit is apple and the state tree is deodar cedar. This is the political map of Himachal Pradesh and it is taken from the website of the government itself. And the next picture is the picture of its winter capital, that is Dharamshala. Here we can see the state emblem of Himachal Pradesh, and it is also taken from the official website of the Himachal Pradesh government. Since 1952, 6 people have been the full-fledged chief ministers of Himachal Pradesh. There were others also, but 6 have continued for the full term. And the current chief minister is Jai Ram Thakur of Bharatiya Janata Party, and he has been sworn on 27th December 2017. Hindi and Sanskrit are hailed as the official languages of Himachal Pradesh. The state has many other local and tribal languages. There are many languages, and the most common are the Pahari languages. Now we can start with the main thing, that is a history of Himachal Pradesh. Before dealing with the ancient history of Himachal Pradesh, we should be aware about the prehistory and the proto-history of Himachal Pradesh. What is prehistory? Prehistory is a time period from the beginning of human life till the starting of the writing. And the proto-history is the transition state between the prehistory and the historical period. The earliest ape man called Ramapithecus and Shivapithecus were the first human-like ape species that lived in the South Asia. The fossils of these Shivapithecus and Ramapithecus were discovered from the Shivalik region. When we check the Shivalik ranges, we can find that the western part of Himachal Pradesh also comes in the Shivalik range. So these Shivapithecus or Ramapithecus would have walked through these Himachal Pradesh. The Shivalik region actually extends from the Indus to the Brahmaputra. A part of Himachal Pradesh is in Shivalik range, indicating the existence of the early human. About 2 million years ago, the man lived in the foothills of Himachal Pradesh. That is, the Bangana Valley of Kangra, the Sirsha Valley of Nalgar, and Markanda Valley of Sirmur. The foothills of the state were inhabited by people from the Indus Valley civilization. Now we are moving to the proto-history. Proto-history is a time period when man started civilizations, and he also had some scripts or pictographic writing methods, but these scripts are not yet deciphered. One such civilization is the Indus Valley civilization. This Indus Valley civilization extended from 2250 to 1750 BC. And during this time, the people of Indus Valley pushed the original inhabitants of the Ganga plains, who were known as the Colorian people, towards the north. They pushed these Colorian people to the north, and they moved to the Ganga plains. So that the Colorian people actually they started migrating towards the Himachal region, the present Himachal region. The Colorian people later lived in the hills of Himachal Pradesh peacefully and preserved. They had no contact with the outsiders and they lived in the Himachal region peacefully. Here in this image, you can see the Shivalik range, which extends from the Indus region to the Brahmaputra region, that is from the present Pakistan to about Bhutan. Not to the Bhutan, it also extends to some areas of China. So here, it is not a political map. Though it is not a political map, we can understand that it also extends some parts of the Himachal Pradesh. And next one is the image of the Shiva Pithikas, that is the earliest ancestor of human being. He is an ape man who walked through these Shivalik ranges. Now we can continue. Since these Indus people have pushed these Colorian people to the foothills, these Colorian people actually moved to the foothills and they started residing there. When we check some of the textbooks like Vedas and Upanishads, we find some references about these Colorian people, and in this they are described as someone inferior, and they refer them as someone inferior, and they call them dasas, dasyus, and nishadas. Also, in later works, they have been described as kinnars, nagas, and yakshas. The Kols or Mundas were believed to be the original migrants to the hills of the present-day Himachal. Then the Kols and Mundas started migrating towards this Himachal Pradesh, and this is called the first wave of migration. In the second phase of the migration, the Mongoloid people migrated towards the foothills of Himalayas, especially to the present Himachal Pradesh. And in the earlier textbooks, these Mongoloid people were mentioned as Bodhas and Kiratas. Later on came the third and the most important wave of the migrants. This was the Aryan invasion. These Aryans came from the Central Asia. These migrants laid the base of history and culture of the Himachal Pradesh. From these Aryans onwards, they developed the language of Sanskrit, and thus it was the starting of the ancient history of Himachal Pradesh. Till now, we were discussing about the pre and the proto-history of Himachal Pradesh. Now we can discuss the ancient history of Himachal Pradesh. Ancient historical references of Himachal Pradesh are seen in epics and Puranas like Mahabharata, Ramayana, Vedas, Upanishads. According to the Mahabharata, the tract which forms the present-day Himachal Pradesh was made up of a number of small republics known as Janapadas. And these small provinces in the ancient times were called as the Janapadas, and 2 or 3 Janapadas combined together to form the Mahajanapadas, or the bigger state. The Janapadas in these Himachal areas were not as same as the Janapadas in the south, because in the southern region, in the Ganga plain, the Janapadas were like, these Janapadas were more like monarchical. But in the Himachal region, the Janapadas were more like republicans. The major Mahajanapadas were Gandhara, Kuru, Panchala, Surasena, and these were overlapping in the Himachal region. Odamparas, Trigartas, Kuladas, and Kalingas were other different tribal kingdoms in the Himachal Pradesh from the 2nd century BC. Chandragupta slowly subdued most of the republics of Himachal by the show of strength or the use of force, though he usually did not rule the areas directly. Next was the famous invasion or expansion towards the Himachal Pradesh was by the Chandragupta. He conquered some of the territories or some of the Janapadas, but he probably did not rule them directly. His grandson Ashoka extended his boundaries to the Himalayan region. He introduced Buddhism to this tract. It was Ashoka who introduced the Buddhism to the foothill region. He built many stupas, and one of the most important is a stupa, the stupa that is in the Kullu Valley. Rule of these regions were later under the Gupta Empire. After the Mauryans, there came the prominent kingdom in the Himachal region where Guptas expanded their empire to the foothills of Himalayas. And after the collapse of Guptas, the local chieftains like Ranas and Thakurs came into power. After a brief period of supremacy by King Harshavardhana, the regions were divided into several local powers. And these major among these local chieftains were the Rajput warriors. Many Rajput groups were formed and they divided among themselves, forming small provinces. Some of these provinces are present day districts in Himachal Pradesh. Now we can move to the medieval history of Himachal Pradesh. The Rajput states ascended in Rajasthan and Indus plains. They fought among themselves and they moved to the hills with their followers, and they set up small states or principalities. These states were Kangra, Nupur, Suket, Mandi, Bhagal, Bilaspur, Nalagarh, Kiontal. These are the current districts of Himachal Pradesh. During Rajput rule, the principalities enjoyed high degree of freedom. There was a high degree of freedom, and we should note this point because this paved the way for the Muslim invasions to the northern areas from the Central Asia. In 1009, the riches of Nagarkot temple attracted the attention of the Mahmud of Ghazni, and he tried to attack the Kangra fort so that he could enter the temple and collect all the wealth. He defeated the Hindu prince at Peshawar and seized the fort of the Kangra, which is also known as Kangra, and he plundered all the wealth. He was the first one to invade this Kangra fort. After him, the Firoz Shah Tughlaq tried to expand his rule to the Kangra fort, and he came into compromise with the local ruler. And later, Timur and Sikandar Lodi also marched through the foothills, and he also tried to capture, but they fought several battles, but they were not able to extend their empire towards the Kangra fort because it was in a very extreme terrain and it was so difficult to conquer the Kangra fort. In 1556, the Akbar launched an expedition into the hills and he tried to, actually we should say that he tried to occupy the Kangra fort. He did several expeditions, especially he fought 52 battles, but he couldn't capture the Kangra. Later, Jahangir is the one who captured the Kangra. Later on, as the Mughal dynasty began to break up, the rulers of the hill states took full advantage. The Kadoch ruler of Kangra availed this opportunity and he regained the independence. He regained the independent status, and this was the Maharaja Sansar Chand. Maharaja Sansar Chand of the Kadoch dynasty again regained his power. He was a native ruler. The state of Chamba, Suket, Mandi, Bilaspur, Gular, Jaswan, Siwan, and Datarpur came under the direct or indirect control of the Sansar Chand. Here is an image of the Kangra fort. We can see that it is in a high altitude and many of the rulers were unable to conquer this fort. Now we can move to the modern history of Himachal Pradesh. In the modern history, we are dealing with the Gorkha Sikh War, the revolt of 1857, freedom struggle, and the freedom struggle. The Gorkhas are a martial tribe and they came from Nepal in 1768. They consolidated their military powers and they began to expand their territories. Gradually, the Gorkhas annexed the Simar and Shimla hill states. Under the leadership of Amar Singh Thapa, the Gorkhas attacked the Kangra. They managed to defeat the Sansar Chand, the ruler of Kangra, in 1806. Gorkhas could not capture the Kangra fort, which came under Maharaj Ranjit Singh. And by that time, the rule of the hill states were taken by the Sikh dynasties, because they conquered the Kadoj areas and they captured it. So the rule of these areas were under the Raja Ranjit Singh, and these Gorkhas were unable to capture the Kangra fort from these Raja Ranjit Singh. Gorkhas began to expand towards the south, and this resulted in the Anglo-Gorkha War. The next picture, you can see an illustration of Anglo-Gorkha War. The English, then comes the Britishers. Britishers enters the scene and there starts the Anglo-Gorkha War. The Anglo-Gorkha War, the English expelled the Gorkhas from the hill states, east to the Satluj. Thus, British slowly emerged as the paramount power in the tract of the present-day Himachal Pradesh. The British won the Anglo-Gorkha War and they pushed away these Gorkhas from those hill areas of, near the Satluj. After the Anglo-Gorkha War, the common border of the British domain and Punjab became very sensitive. The Punjab area was ruled by the Raja Ranjit Singh only, and the area became very sensitive and it led to open riot between the two. In 1845, when the Sikhs under the Raja Ranjit Singh invaded the British territory by crossing the Satluj, and the rulers of, by that time, the many other rulers or indigenous rulers of the hill states were on the side of the English, and they were thinking of getting an opportunity to re-establish their lost power. But after the Anglo-Sikh War, the original owners were not able to restore their powers in the hill territories. Finally, the British emerged as powerful and no one got the power in the hill areas. In this image, we can find the Sikh soldiers. In the second image, the Sikh soldiers moving forward for the Anglo-Sikh War. Next is the condition of Himachal Pradesh during the revolt of 1857. The people of hill states were not politically alive as the people in other parts of the country during the First War of Independence. The rulers of Bashars acted in a manner hostile to the interest of the British, and they were against the British side. All the rest of the rulers, native rulers, were on the side of the British, but the only rulers who resisted the British were the Bashars. Some rulers rendered the help to Britishers. They were like rulers of Chamba, rulers of Bilaspur, Bengal, and Dam. Crown's rule and the freedom struggle. The British territories in the hill came under the British Crown after Queen Victoria's proclamation of 1858. The states of Chamba, Mandi, and Bilaspur made good progress in the fields during the British rule. Thus, during the First World War, these Himachal states remained very loyal to the British and they rendered help to them, both in the form of men and materials. The people of the hill, that is the present Himachal, also participated in the freedom struggle. In the later phase of the freedom struggle, they also took part. In the later time, the Praja Mandal launched agitations against the British in the areas under the direct British rule. In other princely states, agitations were launched for social and political reforms. Then comes the Mandi conspiracy that was carried out in 1914 and 15 under the influence of the Ghadir party. The Ghadir party actually they conspired to kill a British superintendent and wazir in Mandi and Sukhed districts. They also conspired to plunder the treasury and to destroy a bridge across the Bias River. But these Britishers caught them and they were sentenced. This is the Mandi incident. The Pajoda agitation also happened during this period, in which the people of a part of a Simo state revolted, and it is regarded as an extension of the Quit India movement of 1942. Padam Dev, Purnanand, Satyadev, Daulat Ram, Satyananda, Babu Kanchi Ram, Thakur Hazara Singh, Kanchi Ram were the major freedom fighters from Himachal. The Congress party was also active in the freedom movement in the hill state, particularly in the Kangra or Kangda. Here we can see the two major freedom fighters of Himachal Pradesh. First one is the image of Satyananda and the second is the Kanchi Ram. Now we can move to the post-independence period. After the independence, it was taking many years for the formation of the new state of Himachal Pradesh. After the after the independence, the Himachal Pradesh was hailed as a Chief Commissioner's province, and from April 15, 1948. The Himachal Pradesh became a Part C state on 26 January 1950 with the implementation of the Constitution of India. Bilaspur was merged with Himachal Pradesh on 1st July 1954 and Himachal Pradesh became Union Territory on 1st November 1956. Kangra and most of the other hill areas of Punjab were merged with the Himachal Pradesh on 1st November 1966. On 18 December 1970, the State of Himachal Pradesh Act was passed by the Parliament and the new state came into being on 25th January 1971. Thus, Himachal Pradesh emerged as the 18th state of Indian Union. There has been a number of fully fledged governments which led the state towards economic self-reliance. And the first chief minister was the Yashwant Parashar Singh. Now we can move to the second part of the presentation, that is a culture of Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh has beautiful and diverse culture and tradition that remain distinct from the rest of the India, and it is a multi-lingual, multi-religious and multicultural state. They are mostly a nature-loving people and are basically engaged in the environmental friendly activities, as it is very evident from their housing, clothing, eating and job pattern. We can see the linguistic culture. The state has Hindi and Sanskrit as official languages. Being a multilingual state, the people also speak Pahari language. The Pahari languages are the Western languages. There are three types of Pahari: Western, Eastern, and Central Pahari language. And this is the Western Pahari language is spoken in Himachal Pradesh. It involves certain languages like Garhwali and Kamuni. Some of the most commonly spoken individual languages are Kangri, Mandeli, Kalvi, Chambeli, Barmauri, and Kinauri. Religion and tribal culture. Major religions in Himachal Pradesh are Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Jainism, Sikh, and Buddhist, respectively. Hindu communities residing in the Himachal are subdivided as Brahmins, Kayasthas, Rajputs, Sanars, Kannaks, Rathis, and Kolis. The tribal population of the state consists mainly of the Gaddis, Gujars, and Kanauras, Pankwalas, Bots, Swanglas, and Lahaulas, who practice their hereditary occupations and ritual art forms. Art and handicrafts. Himachal is well known for its handicrafts. The carpets, leather work, Kullu shawls, Kankra paintings, Chamba rumals, stalls, embroidered glass footwear like Ulan chappal, etc. are among the handicraft items. They also have silver jewelry, metalware, knitted woolen socks, patu, basket of cane and bamboo, and the woodworks. Here we can see the tribal people. The first is an image of Gujar tribe and second is the Gadi tribe. Another local art is in making is a Himachal cap. Himachal cap contain different colored bands and these caps are sometimes treated as the symbol of Himachali identity. Even different political parties in Himachal Pradesh wear these Himachali caps with different colored stripes. So it is treated as a symbol of the Himachali identity. Dance, music and festivals of Himachal Pradesh. Himachal population keep their cultural art forms intact. Folk dances and Pahari songs are the cultural forms inevitable during the festivals. The most popular dances of the state are Rakshasa dance, Kayang, Bakayang, the Jataru Kayang, Chohara, Shant and Shabu, Nati, Janjar, Jurchi, and Rasa. Nati is the chief folk dance, while Dolru is a famous seasonal song. Dol is a traditional musical instrument. Lohri, also known as Lohri, is the harvest festival, and Kullu Dasara is the most famous tribal festival. Here we can see the images of the Rakshasa dance of Himachal Pradesh and also the Nati folk dance, which is the most important folk dance of Himachal Pradesh. This is the Nati folk dance. Now we can look the food culture. The day-to-day food of Himachalis is very similar to the rest of the North India. They also have lentils, broth, rice, vegetables and bread. But when we compare with other states of North India, these Himachali people have some non-vegetarian cuisines, while other states are having the vegetarian cuisines. Traditionally, Himachali cuisine is dominated by red meat and the wheat bread. Traditional dressing style. The attire of Himachal people is a very beautiful and vibrant and mostly with hand-woven cloth. Men wear tight churidar pajamas with kurtas and long silk overcoat over it. They pair up their dress with Himachali cap or turbans. The Sikh people wear turbans and the others wear the Himachali caps. The women wear ghagri, salwar kameez and cholis. Now we can move to the architecture of Himachal Pradesh. Katkuni or the wooden style is an indigenous architectural technique that is prevalent in Himachal Pradesh. Here we can see the buildings that are built with Katkuni architecture. These are basically wooden architecture with slanting roofs also, thick walls and slanting roofs. These are built to prevent any type of corrosions due to the adverse climatic conditions. This katkuni is the traditional technique that uses alternate layering of long, thick wooden logs and stone masonry, and they are held in place usually without using the mortar. There is no need of mortar for making them stable. They are interlocked together. Most of the oldest temples in this region are built using this ancient system. Not only temples, but many palaces. In the modern days also, they make many hotels or tourist spots with these technique. Buildings have thick interlocked walls, wooden sections, and stone-filled cavity walls to make it resistant to the challenging environment of the Himalayan valley. Now we can see the economic culture of the Himachal Pradesh. What are the jobs that they traditionally do and for their living? Agriculture being the most important occupation of the people of the Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh has its own traditional hand-woven textile industry. The most demanded products among these is the Pashmina shawl. Their textile industry basically depend on the woolen and hand-woven clothes. They also uses leather items. So their industries are basically textile industry, and economically they do agriculture, animal husbandry, and business. They are not much into the service sectors. Now we can conclude by saying that though the Himachal Pradesh is a developed economy, it has kept its culture intact. The mountainous terrain, valleys, rivers, and lakes are a great attraction for the tourists, and thus they contribute to the demand of enhanced tourism and adventure. In present days, the Himachal government is promoting tourism, and this is one of the most famous tourism promoting states because its hill stations are very adventurous and very heartwarming. The study of history and culture of the Himachal Pradesh help us to understand the contributions of the Himachali people to our nation through these ages. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri, for taking your time to prepare for such an extraordinarily wonderful presentation. We winding up the ceremony. I invite Remy Abraham for the vote of thanks.
Hello. Miss.
Yes, Ramya,
Okay, Miss.
you're audible. Can you switch on
Okay.
your video also? If
Yes, Miss, it's switched on.
okay.
Okay, Miss. Good morning, one and all. Here, my duty is to convey the vote of thanks to all who attended this program. First of all, I would like to thank the most dignified proximity that we have here, respected principal of our institution, Reverend Dr. Sister Regina Joseph. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us. Next, by recalling the great efforts taken by our dearest coordinator of EBSB Club, Rekha Miss, I convey our gratitude on the behalf of all the members gathered here for making this event come true. It is always hard to thank enough another irreplaceable member of our department, the one who leads our family in the right way, the HOD, Sunita Miss. Thank you so much for your time, Miss. It is my pleasure to thank a kind soul of a department, Miss Monisha George, for all the cooperation that she lent. Thank you, Miss, for your valuable suggestions and feedbacks. It is always proud to see somebody who's so close to you becomes the star of an event. Here, I thank the utmost attraction of the ceremony, the voice that made this presentation meaningful. Ms. Gauri Sushma Prashok, thank you for your adorable presentation. And finally, it's my ultimate happiness to address each of my dear friends who have been here throughout this ceremony. And thank you so much for putting up so much curiosity and excitement. Once again, I thank everyone for having me this opportunity to convey the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Monisha, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I would like to add a few sentences. I want to congratulate Ms. Gauri. Very great performance, actually, Gauri. You have researched very well. You have made your talk very interesting and also connected to your subject. And as not a person of history background, I could gain much information about the history of Himachal Pradesh from your talk. It was well informed and well researched. So congratulations, Gauri, for your talk, for your performance. Well done. And I would like to thank the Department of History also for organizing such a talk, for giving all the support. Thank you all.
We have come to end of this program. Once again, thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, ma'am.